Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm your host, Todd Nesloni, and every episode I look to bring you a different guest who has encouraged, inspired, or challenged me in one way or another and bring them on to share some of their story in hopes that it inspires you to share some of yours. I'm thrilled today to have my special guest, Kendrick Thomas, on with me today. Kendrick, tell everybody who you are.
How you doing, Mr. Todd? Thank you for having me on. And to the audience, I am Kendrick Thomas, an assistant principal in A-Leaf ISD. Really here trying to bring information and inspiration through kttv.com, which is my podcast, which I share with every Sunday with everyone. And that's pretty much it, man.
Well, I'm so excited to talk to you today, Kendrick. And for anybody listening, if you have not checked out his podcast, definitely go and check it out today. But we're going to talk about you today. So our roles are kind of reversed as what you typically do. But I'd love to start at the beginning, and that is, growing up as a kid, what did you dream you were going to be? And did that align at all with where you ended up?
Look, that is the craziest thing. In fourth grade, I knew that I wanted to be an English teacher. And so really that was the plan. And I told my grandmother that, and I worked. And so I will tell you how it's crazy. And the dreams are so crazy. I didn't end up being a teacher until I was 28.
Oh, wow.
So I did all of these circles through life, but I still managed to come back and become that English teacher. And I was able to talk to my grandmother about it before she passed, And so it was awesome, man. But yeah, I knew starting fourth grade, that's what I wanted to do.
So what brought you around back to education?
I tried so many other career paths, and it just didn't work. And so education was always near and dear because that was one of the places that I found that instant gratification.
Mm-hmm.
If I could teach it and you got it, wow, look what just happened. You'll keep that forever. And so I ended up being a para for special ed, man, and that's when it came from there. I didn't stop. I became a para, worked all the way through school.
Once you were, I've heard so many stories of people who it's like, once I get started, like I'm hooked in there, like you're not getting rid of me, I'm staying there. And so, have you always been drawn to either elementary or secondary, or if you just want to know, I just want to be in education, period?
Yeah, for me, it was education, period. Because I started elementary. I went over to high school when I was in College Station. And so that's where I coached football. And I was an English teacher who was a coach. And so that was fun, except when I would leave because, I got a lot of grading to catch up on now. But game and so high school was a blast. But I think elementary was, where you can really shape them and you can catch them early and mold them. And so I like the balance of both. But I say I'm an elementary man.
And at some point during your career, you decide that administration's also in your path. What kind of led to that kind of decision?
Administration was, each time it was a career change, it was how do I affect change on a bigger platform? And so you think about the classroom community. Then I became, like to say, the team leader, and so now I get more influence as I talk with teachers on the team. So then you go move out to now you're on the school committees. Now I'm affecting those. And so then after that, I became a behavior specialist for the district. So now bigger change. And then here, AP. And so still, I came back. I've been at one school the full time. And so, I just came back and started giving back, man. But it was all about the change for the administration. How can I help more people?
So what do you feel like, that you've really learned about yourself through this whole process of not being in education originally, then moving to education as a teacher, as an aide, and then as a teacher, and then now as an administrator? Do you feel like there's like one overriding theme that you just really learned about yourself throughout all this?
And honestly, it was nothing really new. I just proved to myself because, knowing a little bit more about the background, man, I fought real hard to get here. I fought real hard. Like I say, my friend called me on Thursday, September 3rd, which is that Tuesday. I moved to Houston and I never looked back. In 3 days, and so I got started, man. And so I didn't really have any home support. So I would work, I would go to school, for 2 hours, then go to work from 9 to 6, then go back to school for 2 more hours, just pushing through the mud. And so coming from my background showed me that I was tough because I made it out. But then putting myself through all that and just growing and building and learning, and just listening to people shows me also that, it's tough both ways.
Yeah. Well, speaking of listening to people, you, like we said at the top of the episode, now have your own little podcast series. So where did that begin?
Well, out of tragedy, I love to say sometimes comes a triumph. And so what I did was, after I lost my brother to suicide and I lost one of my best friends, like all of a sudden death, we all were talking about, in our different conversations, we were all talking about inspiring or informing people, whether it was through setting up trainings for elementary, or whether it was through motivational quotes and podcasts and shows. And so once both of those pieces left at the same time, I said, where do I go from here?
Right.
And so what I did was, every day I started with quotes. And so I said, how can I just put out something so that maybe, what if my brother would have seen this and would have gave him a few more days, or made him want to reach out? So every morning, religiously, I'm putting those quotes out, and I'm hoping that someone would see it who's at the verge of something. And then just for information, I'm from Shreveport, Louisiana, which is 300,000 to 400,000 people.
Right.
And so I'm down here and I have 5 million. And so how can I get some of these experiences, some of this knowledge, some of the people that I talk to, like yourself, and the things that you say, back to those people? And so then how? Everybody's online. So that's the plan. That's how it all came to part, man. And it's been going ever since then.
I think something powerful that you said, though, that really resonated with me was the whole idea of starting something that originated in a place of pain, but ended up being an outlet. Because, when I think of this podcast series, it was the exact same way. Started after the unexpected death of my mother, which then led to me wanting to focus on telling the stories of others. And so that part that you shared really resonated with me. And I'd like to take a second just to kind of talk about that too. I've had several people close in my life who has lost somebody to suicide. And I know that sometimes there's a myriad of emotions that you go through when you suffer a loss, period. But sometimes when it comes to suicide, there's also those internal struggles of, did I not see something? Did I not say it here or do it here? Did you find yourself battling with that when that happened? And do you still kind of deal with that? Or how do you work through that grief and that emotion now?
Yes. The biggest thing that I struggled with was, we talked on Wednesday. I seen him on social media. He was out playing with his kids on Thursday. Friday, he was gone.
Right.
And so, usually we talk, man, and the struggle is just a part of our life. That's just the way we talk. Oh, man, I got this coming up. It's so much of this,
Right.
And so nothing would alarm me because we always talk about just the struggle.
Yeah.
So I wonder if I could, and I did have to work through those feelings of guilt, but it was okay. I just kept working, man. I talked to my therapist, and we kind of got through it, but it was tough. Right. Because the way we met was I met him. I've never met my dad before, and so I talked to him once in life, and he told me I had a brother in 2001. Todd, when I tell you, in 2007, I woke up and I said, oh my God, I have a brother here. And I remember he worked 6 years from now. I remember he worked at the hospital. I called every hospital in Houston.
Wow.
And I asked for him. And finally, Memorial off of Southwest Freeway said, hold on. And he was on the phone. And man, when I seen him, we met up, and dude, we just touched each other. It's like, dude. And so ever since then, he's been a part of my life strong. And so that was a big blow, So, but it's okay. We're going to push.
And what I've found, and through several conversations that I've had through this, as well as my own journey, is that, any of us dealing with grief, it comes in waves. It never fully disappears. And so do you find that's true of you too, that there's just some days where something will hit you and remind you, and then you've got to work through those emotions all over again?
Yes. For him, um, like I would say for my brother, I got a little bit of closure.
Right.
But for my friend, which is one of my best friends that died at the same time,
Mhm.
like her funeral um, was on the same day he died.
Oh,
But the
wow.
way it happened with her was I talked to her on the 18th. She died on the 20th. Her family could not reach out to me. They reached out to me on the 23rd through Instagram.
Uh-huh.
But of course, if you're not their friend, it doesn't go
Yeah.
through, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't find out anything. I was calling, I was going by a house, but I never found out anything until June 3rd. But everything is over.
Yeah.
So when you think about closure or you think about those grief waves, that's the one
Yeah.
that, because I was able to mourn my brother. I talked at the
Right.
funeral. I feel good, but with her, I missed it. And so
You know,
that's what.
I hear you say that, and it makes me think a lot, or not a lot, but a little bit of, like what we hear about on the news right now with the COVID-19 things about family who can't be with someone when they know they're about to lose them. Because I think that closure piece is such a big piece of grieving. And when there is unexpected, especially unexpected without closure, it's extra layers to unpack and work through. So I can just imagine what it would go through of not even knowing it had happened until days later, weeks later, whatever, and then all of a sudden be like, how did I miss this
Good.
kind of thing? So I appreciate you kind of sharing a little bit of that. And, you know, shifting gears just a little bit, right now as this episode is being recorded, we are in a upheaval in our country dealing with the loss of countless Black unarmed individuals, whether it's Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. I mean, I feel like just within the last 2 weeks, I could list 10 more names on that list. I know this is not a new struggle for you as a Black man. I know that this is something that you've dealt with your entire life, is hearing these stories and dealing with this. There's just more of a national spotlight on it now. So, the first question I'd like to ask is just, during this time, how are you?
Man, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm struggling.
Mhm.
I'm struggling. It's nothing, like you say, it's nothing really new. Because I've always had to think about what I say or where I go or what is the intention of this policeman or
Yeah.
is it too late to go down this street or something? So that's always been there. I seen something that said racism isn't getting worse; it's just being recorded.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yep.
know, and so man, I'm struggling now because I knew it was in my world, but to see it in so many other people's world, and you think about the boys that I have with my boys club at school, and
Yeah.
it's a lot, man.
Mhm.
It's a lot. It's a struggle.
That's another layer that I've been kind of working through in my own head is, as educators like you and I are, that adds a whole nother level of concern for me of what our kids are going through, and already having to deal with COVID on top of now this, and it being such a spotlight. It's in so many more conversations, and I struggle with the idea that we don't have our kids on campus right now
Yeah.
to talk through this, to love on them, to have these difficult conversations. And so, how do you foresee this impacting the work we do moving forward?
Um, Really, we have to be proactive. My heart hurts because now we have to have such strong conversations with such innocent kids.
Right.
But it's everywhere, so it's in their face,
Mhm.
and so those questions will come up, and especially as I service a lot of single parent homes, and so I think going forward, I don't know because how do I have that conversation at school?
Mhm. Yeah.
Or do you have those kind of conversations? How do you defend those questions? And I think you have to be proactive on that type of thing because it's not a if, it's a when.
Right.
When it happens. But yeah, I think we will be very impacted by that because the questions will come because and they simply a lot of the young kids simply don't have anywhere else to ask.
Yeah.
You know.
You know, I will say one thing that I've thought about is the benefit of us not being in school right now. Many of us across the country, well, nobody's in physical school, but it has given us a time as educators to truly invest in educating ourselves and making sure that we come with a deeper understanding of the racial inequities that exist in our daily life. So when we do come back to school, because there is going to be a point that we all come back together, and in addition to the academic needs that we're going to be serving, the emotional needs of COVID and this rampant racism have just piled on our kids and our families. And so we've got to be prepared to jump in there and be, like you said, proactive and really thinking about when these things come up, because it's not an if anymore. It's a they will come up. And so how are you going to address it? And so, you know, a lot of my base is educators who are predominantly female and white. And so for those who might be listening to this conversation today, and who are thinking of how can I be a better ally to my friends who are Black and brown, what would you say is a, I mean, I know proactiveness is a great first step, but how else can we as white people be better allies?
The biggest thing I would say, and in education specifically, would be just understanding the difference between sympathy and empathy. You know, I hope that we're not still there at all, but if we are, and I don't have a pencil, something as simple as that day, just give me a pencil. You don't berate me. You know, understand that was not my biggest word for the day. Maybe I haven't eaten, and so this pencil is not important. Don't feel sorry for being stopped me from doing my work, or you just won't do nothing, or let me go to sleep because you know I had a rough life. Hold me accountable. Give me what I need, and just understand. And so I would think just the empathy and not sympathy, and lowering the bar for us as far as educators, for minorities, minority males, females, everything. But other than that, outside of education, being okay with having that discourse. That I think that's the biggest thing. You know, and I really had to do that a few days ago, where it got real gritty, you know, but I had to just take it in, intentionalize what I was saying, you know, and be a listener. And so I think that would be the only way.
You know, you said something really powerful there that reminded me of another conversation I had recently. You said, you know, I'd rather you have empathy than sympathy, because I was talking to one of my friends who is a Black female principal here in Texas, and she said, do not feel sorry for me for being Black. I am a proud Black woman, and I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me because I'm a proud Black woman in this country. She goes, but having empathy is totally different. And for you to feel those emotions along with me and educate yourself and take action, that's what I need from you. I don't need you to tell me you're sorry, because I am proud of who I am. And I think that you saying that, it's such an important thing to consistently remember, but also, like you said, having those difficult, gritty conversations, because if we're not uncomfortable, we're not having difficult enough conversations. And so I love that you said that as well. And, you know, one question that I always, you know, kind of love to end these conversations on is the idea of things that we hold really close to ourselves, that are the foundation of our beliefs and who we are. And so, Kendrick, if there was one thing that people walked away with today from our conversation, what would your one thing for them be?
Persevere. If you're doing it, it's worth doing. Or if it's not, don't do it. But if you are going to do it and it's worth doing, understand that it's not going to be easy. You're going to have people that's going to talk about you, that's not going to believe in you. And even if you get 0 likes, you keep pushing. And so that's really it, man. Just persevere, man, because right now we need it. If that is the message, we need that.
That is the mic drop moment to end this conversation. Well, Kendrick, I love your work and your energy and what you are bringing. And so thank you so much for spending a couple minutes with me on Tell Your Story today.
Man, I appreciate the invite and the time today. Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for listening or watching another episode of Tell Your Story. Remember, you can check out past episodes on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get your stuff, it's there. I hope today's conversation with Kendrick has encouraged you to get out there and tell your story, because every story matters.